In a word, impact. I wanted to create more impact in people's lives.
Hey everybody, it's Alan from Blue 7 Content, and today we're going to actually have on Victoria, the other half of Blue 7 Content. This is Victoria Lozano. Say hey, Victoria.
I
And you just got back from the Bahamas. Did you have fun?
I did. It was incredible. It was wonderful. I always have fun on my island, and it's a great time to catch up with friends, kind
Hmm.
of go dark, get off the grid. It's great.
Yes. Y'all, we actually did have a meeting while Victoria was in the Bahamas. We had a few. She joined one from a boat, and well, the clients just admire our dedication.
Well, the thing
But
is, some of our clients are so important that, like, no matter where I am, I'm going to be on that call. I mean, all of our clients are important. Um,
well,
in
and that's the beauty
particular,
of what we
had been
do.
with us since the beginning. So that's why I was even more inclined.
All right. And the beauty of, kind of this, what we do is we can jump on to meetings wherever we're at if we feel like it, But the other beauty of having two of us is we don't always have to be on every single meeting every single time. We can take up the slack if needed. But that's a
Exactly.
little bit about Blue, we know about Blue 7. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about you and your journey because, as most people know, you are an attorney. But when we started Blue 7 Content, you were not. Uh, for those who don't know, Victoria and I go way back to like third grade. So I've been able to watch this journey of hers and be a part of it for so long. So today I'm going to actually talk to Victoria a little bit about her, why she wanted to go to law school, some of the things she thought law school would be that maybe it wasn't, and some of the things that being a lawyer are that maybe she didn't know about or think about. So we're going to talk about that. And what Victoria is going to do over the next couple months is actually talk to some law students. She's going to talk to people who are just recently out of law school. She's going to talk to people who are just starting their first law firm job. Because that's kind of a voice that people aren't talking to. And I think it's
Hmm.
important because these are the future of the legal field, and it's changing so fast right now that when you started law school, there was no concept of AI. Like, obviously, it was there, but it has exploded. It feels like it's been there for so long, but it wasn't. We weren't even talking about that when we started Blue 7. So you've had to contend with it in so many different ways.
Yes.
So, first question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Why did you go to law school?
In a word, impact. I wanted to create more impact in people's lives. I had been teaching. I still teach college level writing, business writing, women and gender studies. I get to kind of be a little choosy with what I teach. So I primarily just teach women and gender studies. And I saw that there was a limited amount of impact that I could have on people. I loved teaching. I loved, getting to get to know my college students in that really crazy time of their life. But I wanted to create more substantial legal impact. So I pivoted, and instead of going the PhD route, I decided to do law. I chose Chicago area because when I got my master's, I did it in the mountains of North Carolina. I basically had lived my life all along the East Coast. And I realized I did like a stint out in Texas, and I realized that if I was going to um, excel in my studies, I needed to be around water and I needed to go where the industry was.
Yeah.
And Chicago is just this beautiful landscape of city, nature, water with the Lake Michigan right there. And it's such a fertile ground for the legal industry. And so I myself a home.
Yes, you did. You actually bought a home there just recently.
I
Congratulations. I
did.
have yet to make it up there, but I will. Uh,
Yes.
so what law school did you end up going to?
So I went to Chicago Kent Law, and how there's like kind of two ways in which I went about doing this. So one was pretty much just serendipity. I had gone up there to Chicago to speak at a conference. I was researching in my academic life women in comedy. So I was actually doing a paper on Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. Second City's right here in Chicago, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where they all
Yep.
started. So it was a pretty cool moment to see my research kind of come to life in this special area. Took the train from Rosemont into downtown, got out the station, made a left. There's Chicago Cat. And I just remember standing in front of it being like, getting this like tingly feeling of like, this is it. This is where I'm going to be.
I'm laughing because I've heard this story before, but now I'm just laughing at that your entire second chapter, second half of life is driven on walking and seeing the law school right there. But I know there was obviously more that went into it. I know that you had other law schools on your list and you had other
Yes.
options and you chose Chicago, and it must have been the right choice because there you remain to this day, much to my chagrin. But that's a good thing for your
So
growth.
so the other thing I did, which I've encouraged lots of students who reach out to me for mentorship and interest, is I tell them to visit the place that they want to go. And I encourage them, as I did, which is go to the local bars around the city,
Mm.
walk into them, hang out at the bar, and just start talking to strangers and asking them, do you know any lawyers? Do you know where people went to law school? Do you have any feelings about it? Because you get real honest opinions in a bar.
I can't imagine why.
Right? And people who are just like in it. And so I remember I I was asking people, and majority of them knew attorneys and majority of them went to Chicago Kent. And I soon came to the understanding that there's a little bit of this like underground rumor, mantra, or whatever, that if you want to work in Chicago, you go to Chicago Kent. It's renowned for its practical application of law and um, its writing courses. And so I was
Mm.
like, oh, okay, that's exactly where I need to be. The other thing that I did actually was I looked on LinkedIn. I looked for alumni from these different law schools that I was wanting to get into. And Chicago area has like two huge known names, right? Northwestern and U Chicago.
Mhm.
Those are just top notch, they're like the Harvard of the Midwest, right?
Yeah.
For law schools. I mean, U Michigan's another big one. But anyway, and I remember feeling like, oh gosh, like, what if, like, the doomsday thought process of what if I just completely am the bottom of the rank? Like, what is really going to
Mm.
happen to me? And thankfully, on LinkedIn, I just came across people, and this one woman reached out to me after I reached out to her, and she was actually a construction attorney based out of New
Mm.
Jersey who had gone to Chicago Ken. And she was so like honest. She's like, do not care about your grades. Get the degree, get the license, get out. She was like, I was on
Mm.
the bottom tier of my law school. I make over six figures a year. And she's like, just get it and get out. And that's just what pushed me. I was like, you know what? Done. Let's get this LSAT done. Let's get this done. Like, let's just go, because the longer
Yeah.
I think about it and wait, the more time passes. And this is going to take time to get. So, as you know,
Right. Yeah. Well, I also know
yeah,
you. I know when you have your mind on something until you definitively figure out whether you're not going to do it or you are going to do it, until you make an action, you're unsettled, right?
yeah,
So, and that unsettlement can go on for a while until you finally just call it one way or the other. And you
yeah,
called it with this one. I will be honest with you. When you said you were going to go to law school, I thought it was just something you were going to explore. Little did I know you were freaking serious.
I've
And
tricked a lot of people.
yeah, it's just, internet. I mean, we were talking about, she applied to this law school and that law school, and I'm thinking she's got a great university job here. She's not going to leave. She's not going to uproot, which I should know better because Victoria is the definition of uprooting, right? She will go in a heartbeat. There is,
You, to
not to
be
say
better
she's
to
not
be somewhere
attached,
there.
but not to say you're not attached here. And that case in point, you still have your house here. So you're still anchored here in Surfside Beach, where we're from, but you will go
Yes.
and explore the world, which is great. It's fantastic. And it's what you and I will recommend to just about anybody to do. Um, I want to say this about your law school as well, and you can talk a little bit about it. But inside that law school, it's an active law firm. So talk a little bit about that and how why that
Yes.
matters, and
Yes.
did that help you?
Yes. So, sometimes they call it like a practicum. Sometimes, so Chicago Kent is, I believe they were the first law school to house an actual law firm in the in like in the school so that students can compete for those spots to be mentored,
Okay.
through a practice area. And Chicago Chem was really known for employment law. It's renowned for its immigration. They have estate planning. They have tax law, which I semi wish that I had done that now that I know where I am in life. But regardless, they so oftentimes in law schools they'll have practical classes,
Hmm.
but you're dealing with dead cases. So you're dealing with cases that have already been completed. At Chicago Kent, you actually get to talk with the client in real time. You get to see the length of the case in real time. Now, granted, cases take anywhere between 1 to 5 years, right? Like
Right.
we're trying to keep it to the 1 year side. So because we're only there for like a semester, you only get like a glimpse into that part. So when I was doing the employment one, I did get to see kind of the discovery process, mainly just like shifting through e-discovery. I was able to I remember, oh yeah, there's this woman. Um, it was a borderline harassment case, ageism case, and she didn't really have much to go on, but I was able to craft a letter to her employer stating like here are the legal issues that are happening and you need to work with this person or she may have grounds for a claim.
Okay.
So it was really cool to see how just like a letter from a law firm can really motivate another
Well,
party
can scare the bejesus out of people.
to do good things. Yeah. So, and but it was also hard it really just gave me this upfront view of how to talk to the actual clients too.
Mm,
So, and how to do billing and whatnot. That's where I started to get my understanding on, um, management systems,
hmm.
billing systems, what that looks like, and all with this great mentorship of a active practicing attorney slash professor.
You know, the idea, it reminds me of like med school, right? Where the students are you're practicing, which is
Yes.
obviously the best way to learn. We know this as former educators. Well, you're a current educator. I think that's really cool. And you got, because the stakes are different when it's a live case. As even
Yes.
as a law student, you're aware that this is something that's actively happening. And I think that's really neat and an awesome model. And I think more law schools around the country should do that, especially with the way law is changing, to have a more practical attitude. Instead of, I'm not saying the academics aren't important, but you're learning as
Correct.
it goes. And instead of being thrown out of law school into a law firm and that be your first case, that just makes zero
Yes.
sense to me.
Yes.
Uh, I know you had started out with the idea, or you had wanted to do employment law. I know you
Yes.
went through certifications for that, and that is not currently what you're doing. So, can you explain a little bit about that and maybe your ambitions at one point towards that area of law and where the pivot happened and why?
Yes. So employment law, I think, will always hold a special interest. And for me, Chicago Kent is known for its employment law. So the one thing that I started to understand while I was in it, because, I'm first gen law,
Hmm.
and I don't have anyone in my family that has done law before. So I
Right.
was very nascent going into this journey and older,
Right.
versus being with these, people in their 20s, early 20s. I mean, going back to back to back straight out of undergrad
Yeah.
who have generations of attorneys in their family so they can easily navigate. So, what I didn't realize was just because your school isn't like a top 14, right? Like just because it isn't um nationwide known, if it's highly regarded in the state, that's good. It can also be nationally known for certain practice areas. And
Mm.
Chicago Kent is nationally known for employment. So the competition was fierce.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
also didn't even know what a union was until I got
Mm.
to law school. And there were full on union like leaders in this law school, or those that had been participatory in making unions, or
Mm.
just had this history of union. I didn't even realize that Chicago, like that's where May Day began. Like I had
Right.
no idea. So competition is super fierce.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know where to start. So even though I tried to get my foot in the game, it just wasn't coming easily. I was getting picked up a lot for workers' comp, which is kind of like a sister area to employment law. Um, it's just an avenue I didn't move forward with for no particular reason. And then I'm trying to think. So, like, besides the competition, there was just a lot of people applying and it just wasn't working out. So, if it's not easy, I try to take a step back and say, okay, what's the bigger picture here? I needed a job. I just went straight into insurance defense. So they
Everybody's
pick up
favorite.
anybody.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Unfortunately, I thought I was special. I came to learn they pick up anybody. So, whatever.
Uh, the background of this, what we haven't said, and kind of the elephant in the room, I mean, elephant is the apt animal to use here, is, while all this was going on, your mom got sick. And your mom
Yes.
unfortunately passed away. So she got sick when you started law school, got better, but not, and then unfortunately passed away before you even finished. Like, it is just so when Victoria's talking about how hard it is and competitive it is in law school in general, just imagine on top of that having to deal with losing a parent. So that is also a factor in all of this.
Yes. And it's funny because I was trying to figure out a way to say it because it's just difficult to say.
Yeah.
Um, but it wasn't just my mom getting sick. It was also 29, so 2018 she got sick is when I started law school, and then I left law school because she got sick. She got better in 2019. I came back and then COVID hit. So
Right.
then I went back to South Carolina. So not only was this a back and forth, but the workers' comp firm that I was going to work for was in the Sears Tower.
Mm.
And once COVID hit, it all went Zoom. So I
Right.
wasn't even able to do that internship well. And the attorneys there were fantastic and amazing and they did their best, but they were very confused about what even they were supposed to do because they weren't allowed in the building, which means files
Mm.
weren't able to be looked at. which means, servers had to be changed to
Yeah.
online desktops,
They
right?
probably had never mentored an attorney from a distance anyway. Like this
No.
was, I mean, I actually forgot, like it's crazy. We've lived through all of this, but uh everything was changing so fast and it was so many unknowns. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that not on top of all that, you were going to law school when COVID hit. Like I very
Yeah. I
vividly
was going to
remember
law
that.
school online. So it's funny because, like, when you said you want to talk about like how things were different, like what I expected in law school versus what's happened, like there's a whole like kind of slew of things. It's insane. But just to kind of finish up how I ended up kind of in estate planning, which is where I am right now, was even though part of me was still gunning for these employment jobs and I ended up doing like insurance defense, like in the background of all that, I was dealing with my mom's probate in South Carolina because she died unexpectedly, very rushed. We didn't get anything done. And because it was COVID, I had friends in law school whose parents and grandparents were dying and they didn't know what to do. But everyone knew that I had just dealt with a death. So
Mm,
everyone was reaching out to me and I was guiding some of them on what the language was. I also, in my final year of law school, even though I was really nervous to take it, you had to take estate law.
mm,
And it was one of my favorite classes. It turned to one of my favorite classes. And I think it's just because it, it, I didn't get to be emotional. I got to put logic to the emotion. Like instead of being frustrated with the probate court, I learned why the probate court was the way that it was. Instead of being frustrated with, you know, intestate laws, I was able to now understand what intestate laws were. So it was a really great learning moment. And thankfully, even though there were some periods in that class where I was emotionally triggered because you do just keep talking about death. And it's just like the way some of these people talked about it. I'm like, it's still so raw. But I was always doing that as an undercurrent. So when the defense job wasn't working out for whatever reasons, we can talk later, because that's also a whole mismanagement
mm-hmm.
issue. I think that's just been a continuous thing that I've seen in the legal world is just these small to mid-sized firms, just the management of them is just beyond. Anyway, I got this opportunity to work at a nationwide firm that does estate planning. Unfortunately, the way that that firm conducts estate planning is more like a sales approach. Kind of like what are those things like when you go into like a hotel and you pitch
Timeshare.
rooms? Timeshare. It was. And I fought myself tooth and nail to be like, this isn't a timeshare thing. Like, I know it's not. Like, this is good for people. And then it just slowly, the veil just lifted. And I'm like, this firm really sucks. They just are looking for a sale. They're not like, yes, education's part of it, but the way I was managing, because I started their branch here in Chicago. I set up the
Right.
office. I set up their client relationships. I found notaries. I found tax attorneys. Like I was the foundation and starter manager of this firm. But the way that I was approaching it was, for lack of better words, not tooting my own horn, but it was too thoughtful. It was too
Mm.
guided. It was too ethical. Like they wanted me to sell a trust and get out, whether the client needed it. And I just did not feel good doing it.
So you were two people first,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which, well, that's a great segue into your next chapter, actually, because you've seen what works and what doesn't work. And I guess we'll kind of, there's been hints on the interwebs, but Victoria is in the process of starting her own firm, and it is called Plan Forward Legal. You're going to be
Yeah.
seeing a lot about it in the next year as everything gets planned. Victoria, talk a little bit about that and where you want to do it. I know we can talk a little bit about South Carolina. Obviously, we're
Yeah,
going to talk about Illinois, but talk to us about Plan Forward Legal a little bit.
yeah. So Plan Forward Legal is an estate plan and business planning firm. The concept is to hold offices here in Illinois, South Carolina, Florida, then Minnesota. So I've got some future planning. Probably in South Carolina, Myrtle Beach and Charleston. It's very much a person forward firm. We are all about educating clients and also contouring plans specific to their needs. And when people hear that, they think, oh gosh, I'm gonna, make things more complicated than what they are. I don't want to. I've been in that world. A lot of firms try to do that. A lot of online forms try to do that. So I'm here to dispel the myth of estate planning. I'm here to encourage clients to make this a fun thing and not a sad thing.
Mm,
Although
it's a
I
tough to do.
understand it's not great. The other kind of component is we are a mobile firm as well. So we will be able to actually go to our clients. I know that was often
Mm,
an issue when I was dealing with clients at my previous firm. A lot of them are older. It is hard for them to drive around. You don't want them to drive around. They
right.
just want the convenience of their home. So we will have a will on wheels component where we'll be able to meet the client there,
Will
trying
on
to
wheels. Is that what you said?
will on wheels. Yes.
I didn't
I
mean to
can't get
interrupt you, but
credit.
that was.
I mean, we did think about that, but there is actually a firm in Virginia that's called that. So I can't use that
Mm.
name. We thought about trust on trucks.
Then you had to get a truck.
Gotta get a truck. So yes. So it's focusing on how to plan forward with where you are. The most times you get an estate plan is when you purchase property and when you get married. Those are the two really big times when you want to get something formalized. I
Yeah.
expand that and say when you start a business, you should get something formalized. When you change careers, you should get something formalized. When you
Mm.
change cities, right, you should get something formalized. So there's lots of
Have a kid.
opportunities for you to start doing that kind of planning. And it's just what it is. It's a planning forward. Like, what do we do next? What's the next step? And we don't want to, sit too long in this concept of, oh my gosh, what happens? What is death going to be? Doesn't need to be that
Mhm.
existential.
You know,
It's really
no.
just paperwork.
Yeah, I
So,
love it. And all the while, we still have and will still have Blue 7 content. In fact,
yes.
we are growing that out. Victoria and I will do other videos to talk about what we're doing next. And it is catering not only to our content side of the business, which is going strong and well, we're going to be
Yep.
doing some consulting and talking to other firms as they work to grow to that next level. And not just law firms. We actually have our first few clients that actually aren't law firms.
Yep.
So we're going to have some case studies coming out about those as well pretty soon. Uh, Victoria, thank you so much for joining today. Uh, Everybody can look forward in the future because we're going to be back because I do want to talk to you. I want to do a whole episode on the bar exam. We
Yes.
need to talk about it, and you're going to be coming on soon talking to some fresh lawyers, and
Yeah.
I think that's going to be
Some fresh
insightful.
blood. Yes.
Yeah, they're going to be great conversations because the legal field is changing so much, even since you graduated law school. I think it'll be great to listen to what fresh grads or people in law school, what they've seen change even over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be great. Uh, Thank you so much for joining us today, Victoria. Are we have so much going on. Everybody's going to
Yes.
see us more. And hey, I just really appreciate learning from what you've been through. I know the people listening to you are going to have questions. Where can they
Yes.
reach you if they have any questions about law school or estate planning or plan forward or, hey, thinking about going to law school? People may want to
Yeah.
reach out. What's the best place they can reach you?
For right now, there's a couple places. LinkedIn. I'm so active on LinkedIn. Even if I'm
Right.
not posting every day, I am on it every day.
Thanks,
So
Tony.
find me on LinkedIn.
Tony Albert. Yeah.
Huh?
LinkedIn under Victoria Lozano. You'll see her. You can't miss her.
Yes. And then also any questions that you have, you can just put planforwardlegal@gmail.com. Just all one word, planforwardlegal@gmail.com.
Okay, and if you need her for Blue 7 content, it is Victoria at blue7content.com. And if you need me, I'm Alan at blue7content.com. And that's all we have for you today, folks. But check back soon. You'll see these videos on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, across the platforms. Everybody have a
Yes.
wonderful day.
Yeah.